I have vowed that on this channel we're gonna keep 100% honesty. So now I have to come clean and be honest with you guys and tell you that I'm not feeling very spooky. We are in the thick of spooky season right now. I've got all my Halloween decorations up. I've got a spooky water bottle, fall themed shirts, and I don't feel the least bit spooky. So we're gonna fix that. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Hi, hello, how are you? How has your week been? So today, this week, we are going to be working to get myself in a spooky mood, because maybe the reason why I'm not in a spooky mood is because I'm reading like cutesy, light and fluffy books. I mean, the one that I'm finishing right now is just a cutesy little fall themed romance novel. Nothing spooky about it. Nothing keeping me on the edge of my seat. None of that. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna read thrillers for a week and see if that can't get me in the spooky mood. So I have 4 books that I'm going to be reading. I believe it's pronounced Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. So this one could be a little bit more of a horror book, but I read The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, also by Grady Hendrix, and it was labeled as a horror book, and I didn't really think it was that scary. So we're lumping it in with the thrillers. Then we've got The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. I know. How is it that I've gotten this far in my reading journey and I still have not read the most iconic Freida McFadden book to ever exist? So we're gonna fix that in this video. And then we've also got The Only One Left by Riley Sager, which I am very excited about. I think out of the 4 books that I have on the docket for this video, this is the one I know the most about, and it's also the only one I own a physical copy of. So I'm very excited about this one. And then we also have A Local Woman Missing, which I don't really know what it's about, but I've heard good things from people whose recommendations I trust. So we're gonna dive straight in. Let's see. I think first I'm gonna read Local Woman Missing, because out of the 3 I currently have access to right now, because Horror Store, I have a hold on it on Libby and it's not available yet. Out of the 3 that I have access to, I feel like that's the one I'm least excited about, and so I kind of want to start with that one first. That way, in my mind, we can only go up from there. Let's get started. Okay, change of plans for this video. I went to start reading Local Woman Missing last night, and it's no longer on Kindle Unlimited. So now I'm gonna read Hidden Pictures by Jason. Can't remember the last name. I don't really know anything about this book, except that every time I see it, I get it mixed up with Hidden Figures. I think that they are very different. We'll see. This book was a thriller, and I think it's more like a horror book. But I just checked the about this book on my Kindle, and it says that it's a supernatural thriller. And I'm like, well, buddy, there's Ouija boards and people are getting possessed. I think that this is a horror book. I'm in my room, gonna go to bed, and now I'm all jumpy, and I think I'm gonna have to start like a palate cleanser book, because I cannot go to bed reading a book like this. So I think I'm gonna have to start like a cutesy romance book to read, because I walked into this room and there's a Trader Joe's bag on the floor right there, because I keep my shoes in there, and I kicked it when I opened the door, and I jumped so high. Like, my heart is racing. Well, I think I'm in the spooky mood. Okay, we can be finished with this video now. I don't have to finish the book. I don't have to read the others. I think I'm spooked enough. I just finished Hidden Pictures. What? What in the world just happened? I'm gonna have to come back. So I finished reading Hidden Pictures. And I guess I am just like the perfect person. I have the perfect brain to read thrillers. Because every time I read a thriller and I get to the plot twist, I'm like never, ever in a million years could ever see the twist coming. Now, I don't know how obvious the hints were, but maybe at the same time I'm like also not the target audience for a thriller. Because I don't know, I kind of like books where I can kind of like piece together a little bit of like what's happening before it happens. I don't know, I can't decide whether or not I like that I can never figure out what's happening. I guess the thing that I didn't like so much about this book was that like there was no point during the book where I had a theory of what was gonna happen. I don't know what I'm gonna rate this book, because obviously I just finished it a couple of hours ago and I'm still kind of like, whoa. I feel like I need to step back a little bit, take a few days, and figure out what my rating is going to be. But in the meantime, I did start reading The Housemaid by Frida McFadden about an hour ago-ish. I'm only like 4% of the way into it, but I'm probably going to get a big chunk of it read when I do my reading sprints on TikTok in a couple of minutes. I read like 40% of The Housemaid on live earlier today. And the whole time I was just like, what is going on? Like, these characters are already confusing me and annoying me. And it's doing a good job of like keeping me on the edge of my seat, doing its job of being a psychological thriller. I'm actually really enjoying it. I can see why it's probably like Frida McFadden's like most popular book and why they're now making it into a movie. So I finished The Housemaid and oh my gosh, that book blew my mind. Like, I can see now why like everybody loves that book and why it's being made into a movie. That was so good. Like, I had no idea how that book was gonna end. I had no idea how like the second 50% of the book was gonna go. I was reading it on live and I was just like, what? It was crazy. Then I started reading Horror Storm by Grady Hendrix, and I think I'm just gonna go ahead and finish it now. I think I've got about an hour left. It's a pretty short book. It's only like 220 something pages, and I don't know what the classification or like what the number of pages the book would have to have in order for it to be classified as a novella, but to me that seems like a novella, because generally the books I tend to read are at least like 330 pages or something like that. So it's relatively short to me, but we're gonna read that book. I think I'm gonna just lay in bed and finish reading that book now, so that way I can start the only one left today. So. much more in the spooky mood now that I've read all 4 of these books. So that was super fun. I actually did get really spooked while I was reading Hidden Pictures. Like, I was texting my mom like, I'm actually kind of scared, and then I had to go start a cutesy little fall romance to like take my mind off of it while I was falling asleep. So Hidden Pictures is about a girl named Mallory who is trying to get her life together. She's in recovery from a drug addiction, so definitely check out trigger warnings before you decide to read this book, because I feel like there's a lot of sensitive content in it that you might want to know about before you decide to read it. And so in this process, she ends up getting a live-in nanny job for this family out in the suburbs. She loves it. She loves the little boy that she's nannying. She loves his parents. They're super sweet, super nice. She gets to live in a nice place and she loves it. However, the little boy has an imaginary friend that he draws pictures of, and the pictures are quite frightening, and the experiences with the imaginary friend feel a little more real than they probably should. And so Mallory gets all tangled up in trying to piece together the very real stories that could be behind the imaginary friend. To me, this book felt a little bit more like a horror book than a thriller, specifically because it deals a little bit with possession, and to me, that reads more horror than thriller. But that specifically was the part that really had me spooked, because I generally try to steer clear of books that deal with possession, demons, ghosts, all of that stuff. And I didn't know that was a part of this book going into it, so that was really the part that scared me the most. I'm gonna give this book a 3.75 stars because, yes, of course, as we all know, the ending of this book took me completely by surprise, as it always does with every horror book, thriller book that I read. I never guess the ending. If you're new here, I never guess the ending of horror books or thriller books. They always take me 100% by surprise. So it is no surprise to me that I did not guess the ending of this book. However, because that is becoming a reoccurring thing, it's kind of making me a little less inclined to add that as a criteria into what constitute a good rating for the book. Because yes, the ending took me by surprise, but I also didn't particularly enjoy it. Then I was just kind of like, I kind of like didn't really care. You know, the author kind of lost me in the last 50 pages. So 3.75 stars. Then I read The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. This book and Hidden Pictures are honestly kind of pretty similar, because this one follows Millie as she is trying to get her life together after having spent the last 10 years of her life in prison. And she gets a job as a live-in maid for this super wealthy, picturesque family. However, obviously, she very quickly learns that that's not really the case. This book was so good, okay? Despite the fact that this book has been so popular for so long, I managed to go into this book pretty blind, and I loved it. It was so good. The perfect psychological thriller, and I did enjoy the ending of this one, so I'm giving it a 4.5 stars. Then I read Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. This one I have mixed feelings about. This book takes place in a kind of IKEA knockoff type store. The employees come in for their shifts in the morning and they're finding like inventory damaged and like things like that like shouldn't be happening because the store is closed and nobody's in the building. And so some of the employees get tasked with staying overnight to try to figure out what's happening, and then obviously things happen. And I really enjoyed the first part of the book, probably like the first half of it. Where it started going downhill for me was when we started seeing the cause of all of the strange occurrences that were happening in the store. Then it got really strange and I was just like, you've lost me. I really just like felt a disconnect from the story and was just trying to read it as fast as possible to be done with it. Like, I wasn't enjoying it so much anymore because I just thought it was like really out of pocket and weird. So this book gets a 2 stars, because then I finished it off with The Only One Left by Riley Sager. Now this one is a kind of Lizzie Borden-esque book. Once again, common theme here, because this book is about Kit, who gets hired as a live-in caregiver for a woman who in her youth was accused of, but not convicted of, brutally murdering her entire family. And it all takes place in a super ominous mansion that is basically falling off the side of the cliff. This book, I had such a fun time reading it, you know, because it kind of is more like, has a very much like true crime feel to it. And while the ending did take me by surprise, oh, the power's like actually out. Okay, I'll keep going. So while I enjoyed this book, the ending I wasn't particularly a big fan of, because at the end it just kind of felt like there were some loose strings, loose ends that didn't really get tied up in a nice way. It felt almost like Riley Sager got to the end of his draft and like realized that there were some plot holes, and he just kind of like tried to fix them as best as he could. Like, they didn't feel like they flowed nicely in with the rest of the book. I don't know, it just didn't wrap up like in a nice little bow like I normally like thrillers to. I enjoyed this one, but that was one of my biggest grievances with this book. So I decided to give this one a 3.75 stars. Anyways, so I now feel much more in the spooky mood. Perfect, just in time for Halloween. However, Christmas is creeping right around the corner for me. So be ready for Christmas content coming soon. But that is all I have for you guys today. Please give this video a thumbs up to let me know that you guys enjoy this type of content, and comment down below the absolute scariest, creepiest book that you have ever read, because I know, like, at this current moment, Halloween is not yet over, but you best believe I am already making my Spooky Season 2025 TBR. So I need recommendations. And subscribe to my channel for more bookish content in the future. I hope you have a lovely rest of your week, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.